What is happening, ladies and gents? Welcome to another episode of the Ready for Anything podcast. Today, we're joined by our incredible guest, Ryan Smith. This is a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. It's basically framed all around unlocking your inner athlete. So, Ryan's background that we'll get into, he's an ex-professional rugby player, and essentially he's went from there to becoming a coach, running multiple businesses, to moving out and starting his own life out in Portugal, to building an incredible coaching brand, and now actually competing at a really good level of high rocks and pursuing amazing things in there. He's actually a world record holder for the most burpees done inside 12 hours. And we actually talk about his attempt of the 24 hours and the challenges that brung as well. But this is a great episode with so much in there, especially from that same thing that keeps recurring and popping up in episodes about the transition from really focusing on aesthetics to then focusing on performance and the challenges that that brings as well. Anyway, guys, please enjoy the episode. I think just to start things off, mate, like I obviously met you in February 2022 in Ireland at an event for a business event. But mate, like obviously I just spent the last half hour just going through I was balls deep in your Instagram there, mate. Going all the way back, looking right back for a few years and stuff. Like I obviously know like a little bit about you, mate, from just chatting back and forward. I wouldn't say like I particularly like know you dead well or anything like that at all. Just I think the amazing thing is now is that we've spoke many a time back and forward. We've met in person once, but you can know someone through social media. But just kind of get everyone up to speed about your story, mate. Like where you're at now and what led you to that point, mate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I'm currently living in Portugal. I've been here for the last 8 years. I decided to up sticks 8 years ago. Spent all my life in the UK, born and raised in West Yorkshire, and I took a chance on myself and obviously ended up here. Prior to that, I was a professional rugby player for 10 years of my life. So I've always been kind of in and around fitness and seen I signed my first professional contract for the Bradford Bulls when I was 15. So literally left school, didn't have to get a job as a paper round on McDonald's. I was straight into a professional environment, which was scary, amazing at the same time. But I think it's obviously set me up as well for a lot of things which you don't realize at the time outside of rugby to kind of what I do now. So yeah, I spent 10 years as a professional. I played for the Bradford Bulls, who were the World Cup champions the World Cup champions at the time, an amazing team in Super League. Spent a few years there coming through the junior ranks, didn't quite break into the first team, and I moved on to Hasselford Tigers and spent some time in the top division. Then eventually I dropped down, didn't quite fully break into the Super League. Had a few games, but I dropped down a division and set up my own roofing company at the same time. So I was playing semi-professional, working as a roofer, which actually financially was better. Now, top flight rugby, you can get great money, but if you were a good player, you drop down in the ranks. You had a good contract, still good money getting coming in. But then I obviously set up with the ability to do that, being a part-time professional and sell my own business, and I did that for probably 5 or 6 years, working through the second division teams, been for a couple of teams there, and eventually retired when I was 25, 24 or 25, around 10 years ago. I'm 35 now. And I started going in. I'd already done like my sports science course and my PT course. So it was always something I'd shown a lot of interest in. And I basically started running initially. I was about to get married and I started doing a boot camp, a local boot camp for, we call it the bridesmaid boot camp. So basically my ex-wife at the time, she said, we was going to get married in Portugal. So let's start a boot camp for the bridesmaids, get everyone fit for Portugal. They all want to do this. We started this, 5 or 6 girls coming down who then brought their friends, brought their boyfriends, and it ended up being the biggest sort of boot camp in the north of England at the time. We're having 50 people jumping around doing burpees in a field, and kind of I was at that point like, I think I can make a career out of this. Even though your parents are like, are you going to get a proper job? Because this kind of become my sole focus then. And then from then one thing led into another. Started doing some PTs with friends, still running the roofing business, and I got an opportunity to move to Portugal, which I jumped in at,
Yeah.
and I'm here now in the sunshine with no real interest to go back to the UK.
Yeah, mate. I've followed you for a while. Obviously, I've only known you since you've been in Portugal, man. But I was just talking before this, like our plan at the end of the year is to kind of jump ship and go nomad for a couple of years, man. But I actually spoke to you about it, like I think it was like a year ago, didn't I? Like about
Yeah.
because it's been on my mind for ages, man. And what made you choose Portugal, mate? What was the reason for that?
I've been holidaying here for a while. My parents bought a holiday home, God, 15, 20 years ago. So it was somewhere we'd come, we were familiar with. And as I was out here, as I say, with my ex-wife, we got married here while we were still living in the UK. And she got a job opportunity to be a wedding planner out here. I got a job opportunity to work at a big gym. And well, I suppose you've probably had that moment yourself. Hence why you're thinking about doing what you do. I've been sat for many years on a beach on holiday and just sat there like, and you've probably said it or heard people say, I could live here, I could live abroad, I could do this. And I think there were just one or two many times I'd said that and not followed through with it. And we're like, let's take a chance here and let's go. So I had like some people escape abroad to escape from the lives. I had a really good life back home, my own business, guys working for me. Obviously, I'd been a professional rugby player. I had a really good setup, but I was just like, there's more to life. Let's take a chance here. And I literally sold up and sold the business and took a chance and just moved out here.
Yeah, my moment was like in April when I was like me and Ailey were running our first retreat. We were in that like wicked villa in Spain and we had everyone there
Yeah.
and we were hosting it. And we were like training and we'd been out a big run in the hills and it was like sunny and I was tops off and I was wearing my fucking Oakleys and I was just like, everyone was talking. I just turned to Ailey. I went, "This is what I want our life to look like."
Yeah.
And that was like the pure deciding moment of like, cool, let's just engineer it like that. Because I think there is a point where you do need to build up the belief, like we were saying. You need to trust yourself enough to do it. And there is an element of that. And I think that relates a lot to transformation and changing, is like a lot of people can be at that point where they say a lot, but they don't actually mean it because they don't actually trust themselves a lot enough to do the thing they know they want to do.
Yeah, it's exactly how it is. Don't get me wrong, this were a conversation. It didn't happen from one day to
Yeah.
the next. It took a year of doing this. But something I've had the balls to do is take a chance on something. We didn't know if it was going to work. And to be honest, I've gone to the next part of the story, and it turned out the initial setup here wasn't all sunshine and rainbows and blue skies and beaches here in Portugal. There were a few times the towel nearly went in and we had to go back home. But it is building up a trust system with yourself and that belief system that you can actually make something work and taking a chance. I mean, you can't ever be certain with anything. And as obviously we've spoke previously, and I just said to you, you've sometimes just got to back yourself in this situation and obviously look at as well, what's the worst that can happen? What is the worst that can happen? I had to take 8 suitcases back to the UK and start again. That were the worst case scenario. But one thing that was also keeping me now, I got to a point, like I say, where I had a good, comfortable life, but I always want challenge. I always want something more. And I got to the point where my roofing business were doing extremely well. We were doing some of the PT, the boot camp stuff. But the roofing, as well as it was going as a business, I was just like, you can imagine being in the UK in -3 degrees, getting the ladders off the roof, and it's pissing it down, it's freezing, it's just not good. And the one thing, regardless about however hard it was getting here, I was just like, what I were reframing the question, not how good things could be here. Look where you could go back to if you don't make this work. I remember friends saying to me, "Oh, you work 6 months a year, you'll be back." And I'm like, well, that's enough. I'm probably egotistic at the point as well. I need to prove you guys wrong. And it were also having that in the back of my mind. Which, believe it or not, 8 years later, and in a quite a good, comfortable spot now, I still have that in the back of my mind. You could be back on the cold roofs, so keep working, boy. So that's
Yeah.
obviously an element there as well. What keeps us driving and keeps me wanting to progress and move forward.
Yeah, there is a point that I think everyone that's got that, like, I suppose it's entrepreneurship, isn't it? It's that sort of like journey of kind of living a life by design, whether that's like through your fitness, whether that's like, it's almost like that mindset oozes into everything else. But I remember it as well, like when I was leaving the Air Force, like nearly 7.5 years ago, and it was like, shit, this needs to work. But the more
Yeah.
you do it and you take that initial first big thing, like, so obviously you making that move or stepping away from your career, you build up that stack of evidence with yourself, that then allows you to back it. So see, I was saying to Ailey recently, I was talking about it. I went, this is fucking mad what we're actually doing. Like it's actually mad what we're doing. Like I've not really told many folk about it and stuff, but like, but I've got no hesitation that it's not going to work. I know it's going to bring its challenges, but it's funny that like this, what I'm doing now is probably way more riskier. It's got more kickback, but because you've actually, you know that you'll land in your feet, whatever you do. I had this conversation with
Yeah.
my mate Lewis a while ago. Like, I used to be so fearful of even like, what would I do if I left not being a coach? Like, what would I do? But now I'm like, I'd go work in sales. I would
Yeah.
go like, I would like, because I've got so much trust in myself. Like, I like,
Yeah.
and it's weird that like I don't have any more qualifications. I don't have anything else on paper. All I have is more belief. And it's
Yeah.
mad. Like it's fucking mad. And it's like, but that initial jump, I didn't have a mortgage at the time when I left the Air Force. I was
Mhm.
in with my parents. I was in a job I didn't fucking like. There was no option to go back, but I was more fearful, way more fearful than I am now. I'm actually like, this is cool. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just it's mad. Like how your mindset to change just shifts over time. It's crazy.
Massively, yeah. So I'm a real big believer in that, and I think you make your own opportunities in your look in life to a certain extent, like by doing things and putting yourself out there and in situations. I speak to a lot of young coaches now who've kind of just come through the ranks, and they're like, "I'm an online coach." I'm like, "You haven't spent no time on the gym floor. You've had no life experiences out," and then you see them fizzle out, and it just doesn't work. Like I've done a lot of shit. Like I've been from a rugby player, I've been a roofer, I've traveled a lot when I come out here, but I also, as I was saying initially, I got this amazing job opportunity training professional footballers at a gym, what turned out to be a load of crap. I got misled and sold where it worked out or being told initially I want X amount an hour, around €4 an hour. I wouldn't have even survived. My savings and everything were going. So I had to take another chance out here. I had a Prosecco van, I had businesses going because an element of survival mode, but also just like if this don't work, I've built up the confidence through doing things which are probably outside and of what you're actually supposed to be doing. That you've got just you trust yourself to jump in and keep yourself going. And obviously, you can use things and pull things from your past. Like I say, me not going back to the roofs on the we're pulling the ladder off the roof and freezing my balls off. It's like I don't want to go back there, so we make this work. And it's just it's just backing and trusting yourself. But the only way you can actually do that is like what you're wanting to do now is by putting yourself out there on the playing field and giving it a go.
100%, mate. What would you, this is a pure random question. What would you do? See if you get everything stripped away for you, mate, like
Yeah.
today. Would you go full blown Prosecco van? Like, what would you do, mate? Like, you had the gym away, ready for success, like all this stuff. Like, what would you do?
I've had this conversation with some other coaches, and probably similar if you just said, like people are in, if they lost the business, they'd be in fear. I am confident within a couple of weeks I could set something up, something completely off the radar, not what I'm used to doing. And believe me, I'm not the most academic kid. I skipped school a lot when I was there. I think because I knew I'd got a professional contract, I thought I could skip, and I'd rather go fishing or kick the rugby ball around. So I'm not going to be the one who's going to be turning up with an amazing CV, tons of GCSEs and everything else you need to walk into a job. But I believe just through life experience and being savvy that I'd step in at something else like the Prosecco van. I used to say, yeah, I'm getting people pissed by night and fit in the morning. I was going from a Prosecco boy to doing PTs in people's garage when I was out here. And I think you've just got to look at things without that fear of just like you're not going to obviously you might have had a great success in your business. It's all going to get stripped away. You're not going to go straight into that the day after. But I suppose because of what I've done and being like I built my business from here in Portugal from the ground up. I come here. I didn't speak the language. There were me and my ex-wife. We knew no one. Like I have a ton of mates who moved to Australia, and the new people there and you can speak English. Here you can't. So I'm like, I've managed to do that from being promised an amazing job to then having to train people 6 months later in the garages in the villas to then go. Right, you've just got to take a chance and have a go because if you stay there stuck, you're going back to where you've come from.
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's just again, you just keep building up that. I think that the key word is trust. I say that all the time,
Yeah,
mate. I think that's like
absolutely.
we have this sort of like philosophy inside the program about like doing what you said you would do because it's like You need to
Yeah,
build
no.
up the commitment with yourself to go, I can, because most folk have got this wee monkey on their shoulder going, this is brilliant, but how long is it going to last? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I've been there many a time when I'm doing something, and I'm even showing a lot of confidence in it, and that monkey is on
Mm,
my shoulder going, you're going to
always.
crack soon, man. You're going to fucking crack soon. And then
Yeah.
that's like that fucking peak in it, and then you fall off, but it's
And it's yeah, I can fully relate, and it's also just fucking failing at some stuff. Like everything's not even gone swimmingly in the slightest. As I say, from 8 years ago, in the first couple of years, I was crying. I ended up in hospital for a certain situation where there were times I was going to throw in the towel and I was going to go back and pull them ladders off and go on the cold roof. Like, and you doubt yourself, and I'd failed at certain things. There were a couple of other business opportunities I tried and they didn't work. Um, you learn from them. The only thing that matters in my opinion, whether it's in fitness or high rocks racing, all right. Once it's done, it's done. What's next? That's the mentality I always just kind of stick with. Right, this didn't work. What do we do next? There's no point sulking about it. Let's solve it and move on.
yeah. Does that show a lot in your coaching now, mate?
Yeah, and I think it's something I relate constantly over to as clients. Like you get people in, as you'll know yourself, some people come in with um they've done a little bit more in their life. I coach because I'm an ex-athlete. We coach a lot of ex-rugby players who've they've been through similar situations to me, but they find themselves lost as well. You're bringing people in who haven't had those life experiences and they're having that constant fear of failing at what they're doing. So I just kind of try normalize that as much as we can, and especially now we're bringing in a lot more guys who are wanting to performance clients, so they're wanting to do the high rocks and things. I'm just saying, look, there's going to be a certain degree of trial and error here, but if it don't work first time rounding, we don't you don't get your goal time. It's fine, it's normal. All that matters is what we do next.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a mindset, isn't it? You need
Yeah,
to.
completely.
Something I heard recently is like if you want to go through like seasons of winning, you have to go through seasons of losing, like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the time. But
That's
I'm
just
gonna come on to that, man, because I know that like I mean I couldn't believe I looked it up, man, but like last December you obviously went for the 24-hour burpee records. Um,
yeah.
I'm kind of skipping a bit here, man, but talk to us about that, man. Like obviously December 8th, you attempted to do 24 hours of burpees. Would that have been the world record you were going for?
Yeah, so I'd set it up as a world record. 5 years previously, I broke the 12-hour burpee world
Yeah.
record as a Guinness World Record. And I toyed with the idea ever since of doing it. I think it was all due to happen, if I'm not mistaken, around COVID time. And for obvious reasons, we couldn't nail it in. And I was just like, it was that scratch. I just kept needing to itch. I'm like, I need to do this. I've toyed with the idea. People have asked me, oh, what's your next challenge when you're going to do it? And I was like, right, look, I can't leave this any longer. I ain't getting any younger. And I know how much this is going to hurt and probably take to recover from. So I'm quite bad. I don't know if it's the ADHD in me or that impulsive kind of thing. If I say something, my girlfriend Laura, she just laughs. She's like, "Doesn't I can come up with an idea, and she's realised there's no point trying to take me away from it. I'll say it and I'll do it. Like if my mind's set on it, and it was like from one day to the next, right? We're going to do this on in December, and I'm going to just get prepare for it as best I can, and we're going all in. So yeah, I set it out, set it up with a charity. There was a guy who's in our coaching program, works with an amazing children's charity, set it up there as a good cause, and then I threw myself into it quite naively to a certain extent, which I think you need to a certain degree when you do these kind of things. But basically, when I first did the 12-hour burpee world record, I was training for this for months, and I were programmed in, dialed in to just solely focus on this. After you've done thousands and thousands of burpees, like I know how to do a burpee, and then speaking with Dan Revo, you've just had on. He's like, yeah, you know how to do a burpee. Let's just get your body as prepared as you can. You're fit at the time. We're training for a lot of high rocks. Threw myself into it, and 13 hours in, my shoulder was basically destroyed. I couldn't physically go any longer, which I knew I'd had a little niggle, an injury before. I was toyed with the idea of postponing it to January, and I like it's just going to drag on. So I went through just hoping like we might be able to hold on, but literally 4 hours in, I was in absolutely agony. And bearing in mind, I had a cortisone injection prior because it was already bad, and I knew it was going to flare up. But it was too much, and it was like it was. I'm a stubborn bugger, and I was like, I can see this out, but I knew I wasn't going to break the world record. In the first 2 hours, I were on for smashing it. The amount of burpees I were doing, are like, Ryan, you're flying, you can actually slow down here. And then it was just I was taking longer on breaks. I was in a bad way. I looked like Quasimodo once I finished, to be fair, with the inflammation and stuff. So we tried, we had a good go. I just said to everyone, I'm staying on the mat longer than the last one, beating what I did on the 12 hours. And for 4 months later, I can barely move.
Yeah. I done
So
1,000
lesson
burpees
learned.
once, mate, and 1,000 burpees was insane. Do you know what I mean? Like to do that, like
Yeah,
it's not nice, mate. And I think the strain of your body, like me and Dan were actually talking about this in the podcast all day. Like when you go past that 8 hours of anything, like you just hit this hole of like and all like now like, again we had Sean Conway on the podcast as well. It's coming out next week, and well, when you listen, if anyone's listening back to this, it'll be last week because this will be the
yeah,
following week. I've just recorded a bunch of episodes this week, but and basically like you just get to this point now, like anything that is like that is prolonged is endurance, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. I think people even underestimate, like there's a thing up here called the kilt walk where everyone puts on a
yeah,
kilt and goes a walk. And loads of people just underestimate it. I'm like, it's 26 fucking miles. It's like 26 miles that, and
yeah,
folk go and they fuck themselves. They
yeah.
absolutely, because they don't realize that like anything where you're putting a repetitive strain in yourself for a prolonged
Uh,
period of time is endurance. And then
yeah,
you need to be specifically conditioned to that. So to put your shoulder girdle just not used to doing that much repetitive movement. You don't walk on your hands, do you know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah.
then I could hardly move after the 1,000. Like I was the next
No,
day, mate, I was like, oh my God, man. Like I couldn't even raise my arms above my head. Do you know what I mean? So it's insane.
yeah, it's weird that constant movement. Obviously, the burpee, you probably can't pick anything worse than that. But yeah, that repetitive movement over time. And as I say, I went into it naively thinking I've smashed the 12 hour. I can do this just purely off grit and mindset. And it was a great learning curve as well to realize I wasn't. I was fueled up perfectly. I knew how to fuel. We touch base, me and Revo from start out of fuel, and I was cramping on my triceps. So imagine every time I punch up,
Yeah.
my triceps were cramping, and I'm like, I'm fueled up. This is just purely a lack of fitness for doing this specific thing I'm doing. And I think again, relating into somebody just putting themselves into a 26-mile kilt walk, or at the moment I'm training for a marathon. You can't do these things with just pure grit and determination. You can, your mindset's going to be the one thing what's going to get you in those dark holes that little bit further, but your body will give up. And as I say, I am a stubborn bugger. I will push my body past that point, as I'm sure I know you're exactly in that same sort of mind frame of what you've done. But there's a point where it will fight back and say, mate, this ain't happening today. And it was a good learning curve for me as well.
Hmm.
Because I just thought I've done thousands of burpees 5 years ago. I don't need to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then I found out about it.
Yeah, I can imagine it was brutal, mate. And I can imagine the pit of fucking despair you're in when you hit that hole for the first time and you start doing the math on how much you've got left and where you're at. And it's overwhelming. Like it's like
It
to be in those positions, man. So respect, mate. 13 hours of burpees is savage, mate. But see if you look at anyone that's got the like so these like workout records, like the most pull-ups, the most push-ups, the longest
Yep.
plank, like they don't do it first time, mate. Like they never
No,
like
no.
Truett Haynes, Cam Haynes' son that recently broke he took it off of David Goggins.
Yeah.
Like another guy took it off of David Goggins. He attempted it first time, never done it. Like failed the first time he done it. That's
I
insane.
think
But
Goggins failed four times,
yeah,
three or
four
four times,
times.
didn't
Yeah,
he, beat
yeah,
the first
yeah.
time? Yeah.
The skin in his hand, like
Yeah.
it was insane. Like what they done, but like to go and do stuff like that and then go right, I need to go and do that again and again to beat it is just it's mental. Like your body needs to it does have to build up. Yeah, I think you have to build up that. Like Sean Conway spoke about the 10 pillars of endurance, but the second one is experience, and then ninth one is mindset. And he's like, you can't just do a lot of these things. I don't know if you've seen Ross Edgley recently swam the Yukon
Yeah.
510 kilometers. His coach or his nutritionist said something in the vlog where they're like, it's taken Ross his entire life to get to this point to do that. You can't. You have to go through this. Like there is a total psychological conditioning that you need to do to build up to stuff like this.
Yes.
And you get the occasional person that's like they cut. You come across these folk that are savages, man, and then they just
Yep.
go and crank out like 10 marathons in 10 days and stuff. And they're like, you've been running for a year, but then you find out that person's actually had a traumatic childhood or and you realize that their mental conditioning started back then. Do you know what I mean? They've got it. So I think you need to kind of take everything with a pinch of salt when you see, because you don't know someone's full story to where they're at and how they think. But there is some pure mavericks out there, man, that do things, isn't there?
Oh, it is. It's sickening. I know a couple of guys like that. They put seem to put half effort into something, and they can just come out on top on everything they do. They're grinding it out with sweating, trying to do hours of burpees, and but I think especially in the endurance game now, a lot of the top guys, and I have conversations with a lot of guys, and you bang right in saying there's been something a little bit deeper what's got them through. You've been there, you've done enough Hyroxes, you've done enough crazy shit like myself, and when you get yourself in that pain cave, we did a Hyrox masterclass last night, and I was talking to our clients in regards to that. When you end up in those dark, horrible places, and you're in that pain cave, it's not something that is addressed as much, and there's going to be you. It's just you and that all, and the demons on your shoulder telling you to quit and stop. And I have elements of taking myself back to times which have been much harder. Some of them are unfitness related, but it's something that drags you through. And I think that in itself is conditioning, just like training, which people overskip. They see people on Instagram, they see what their class is the perfect physique or the perfect athlete, but it's not probably in most cases just been a case of accumulation and volume of specific physical activity and training. There's probably an element of trauma or mindset or putting themselves in shitty situations they've had to pull themselves through. Sometimes through choice, sometimes uh, when it's
Yeah.
not been choice as well.
Yeah, I think like one thing I've definitely found, and we'll come on to this as well, because I want to obviously talk about the sort of transition into high rocks, like, but
Yeah.
the the thing that I've really found, and I don't know if you can relate to this, is as I've got fitter, like it was something that Joe used to always say is like it never gets easier, you just get better. I've
Yeah.
really understood that recently because like I was talking to a client about this the other day, and the clients basically went from not really training, they've had a poor relationship with food. They've always kind of trained for like just more movement and expenditure rather than like actual intensity and quality. But now they're getting to this point, they were like, I had my first session where they were like, I didn't want to do it. And I went, it's because your exertion is getting so hard now. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but like I've now got to a point where I can actually hold like really high intensity for prolonged periods of time. So like if I'm on like I don't know, I done a complex the other day at the end of a workout, and it was basically lunges straight into wall balls 4 times,
Yeah.
and it was 100 meters and 100. It was just basically back to back, and I'd done the
Yeah.
full thing unbroken, and I've been fucked all week because of it.
Yep.
Like, but I've never
Yep.
been able to do that. But see when I was in that, mate, see the fucking it's not even negativity anymore. It is negativity, but it's like it's self-doubt on steroids, man. Like it's
Yeah.
like this level of discomfort. It's like where is my mind digging in? Because it's now trying to go stop, 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 stop,
Yeah. Yeah.
fucking stop. This is because I've done the full enduring for long, but this is now like enduring and mad high intensity, which
It's
is
got it
and
all.
heavy
Yeah.
weight, and you're just like, this is crippling. And then see when you just stop, it just stops, which is
Yep.
weird. It just goes away. And you have to remind yourself of that. Like the minute you stop, the minute it will stop hurting. So like
Yeah.
just don't stop.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only thing what honestly gets me through them high intensity sessions and at high rocks is knowing it's going to end. And the only way it's going to end is the harder I go and the faster I go to get there. It's honestly one of the only things that pulls me through. I find every single high rocks I've done, especially the last one at the World Championships, disgusting. I question my life choices over and over and over again. And exactly what you said, like if I take myself back to when I first started training for this, because I was more bodybuilding focused for many years before I stepped into hybrid training and performance training. And it got comfortable, it got easy because a bit probably bringing I take some guys who would be more performance based into a bodybuilding type session with me. We're doing drop sets and rest pauses and stuff like this, and it were breaking them, and it was just comfortable for me because I'd done it for many years. I jumped then into doing some high rocks with some of my CrossFit mates who I used to call cross dressers and take the piss out of you, and they just wiped the floor with me, and I wasn't conditioned for that. And as you said, like you then build up to get good at that specific thing, and it doesn't get any easier at all. But it's because you're also just wanting to push constant boundaries, and you're just wanting to go harder and harder. So that's the reason it doesn't. But yeah, I relate to that massively.
Yeah. So obviously, I know I mentioned at the beginning, like again, I've seen a big shift in you. It wasn't like anything was in a bad spot by any means at all, but like, mate, I've just kind of watched things intensify, mate, just in the way like you can just tell when they've got a lot of fucking momentum and purpose behind them. What was like going from like ex-pro pro rugby, coming away for that, then kind of going down bodybuilding, getting really, really comfortably uncomfortable there, right? And then like
Mhm.
finding high rocks. What was that? What's been the biggest sort of transition there and the biggest revelations?
I got soft
Yeah,
and I got comfortable, and I didn't like it, and I couldn't understand what was going on for a long time. Like I would just go, I'm dedicated and consistency wise, I never stopped training, never missed a session, never did when I before I got more into high rocks training like I've been doing now. But I was very comfortable and I was just going through the motions for a long period of time. And I was just telling myself the consistency you're putting in is okay. That's what we all need. And I thought it's not good enough. And I started to feel soft. And it's similar with the burpee world record as well. I did that 5 years ago, and I was like, I've done that. I'm feeling soft. I need to go challenge myself. I need to find that bit of a arsehole that's in me again because you're being a pussy, right? You need to test yourself. Friends of mine, the CrossFit guys, call me up. They live in England. Ryan, fancy flying over to do this High Rocks thing in January. I had no idea what it was. And we did it was just it was a relay. We ended up coming second as it happens, and they were like, they threw me in the deep end, the bastards. They really did. These are all fit lads. They're used to training like this. Like Ryan's good at burpees. He's obviously done that, and he's strong. He should be fine on the sled push. So they chucked me on the sled push. I had one rest, and then I were in the burpees, and obviously the runs in between. I don't know if you've done a relay,
it's
but
fast paced, is it? Yeah.
it's intense. It's intense, and you don't want to let your mates down. You ain't pulling up. You're going full send. It absolutely ruined me. I was in a bad place from coming off the sled push. My legs went to Bambi. It looked like I'd been sniped from fucking
Yeah.
sidelines. I couldn't run after. I managed to pick myself up, get round, and then I was like, you could getting a tap on the shoulder going to do the burpees next in your next run, and I was like, I'm soft. I ain't going to feel that shit again ever. I put in. I suppose I become sort of one of them Instagram assholes who thought you can sit behind doing bicep curls and bench press and tell people you're great because you did a world record a few years ago. And I'm like, it's not good enough, mate. You ain't setting your own examples. You can lie behind a lens and tell people you're as good as you are. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm going back to digging and find this savage mode that I know that's in me.
Do you know it's so funny, mate? I appreciate the honesty there as well because I can relate as well. Like I think a lot of people, if anyone's watching the video and they follow you or that, they'll see that at this point that you're saying you're a pussy, mate. If you were to put you, like, if you were to stand you on a beach and go, is that guy a pussy?
Yeah.
Everyone would be like, no, that guy's a fucking savage. Because it wasn't like you were out of shape. You were probably in the
No,
fucking
no.
top percentile of what a conditioned physique looks like. Your strength was probably ridiculous. Your output was probably ridiculous, but you were just, I say this all the time, you were operating within the confines of what you knew. Do you know what I mean? And that was the difference. And I done the same, mate. Like I went through a point where like I was in the military and I was like someone that was fit. And it's funny, I actually joined the military 13 years ago tomorrow, like 14th September, which is mad, right? So I put a post up and I was looking back at photos and I was like, man, you were a fucking imp. Like I thought I was like such a fucking big dog at some points, man. And I was
Yeah,
like, man, you were like a little guy. But like
yeah.
the one thing that when I left, I had this like idea of like who I was and the things that I'd done, and I dabbled in a couple of things. Of course, fitness wasn't where it's at now, knowledge wasn't where it's at now. But when I became a coach, I done spin, and then I was like, I don't need to go out runs anymore. And then like I was like, well, the other PTs just lift weights. I'll just do that.
Yeah.
And it was like and then basically like 2000 and when was it? 2018. I basically got a coach, and the guy was an ex-paratrooper, Scott, and like it was, I think he was I can't remember what his exact title was, parachute regiment instructor, and he was
Right.
ex-forces, and he was like private security and stuff. The guy's like a world record holder, mate, for the race across Scotland, like
Yeah.
220 miles, mate. He's got the record for it. He's a ridiculous athlete, and it really made me rediscover like, oh wait a minute, like I need to fucking up my ante. And then I lost it again, mate. Like, see from like and like again, it was like I peaked and then I went down. I didn't trust myself. Do you know what I mean? Like we were
Yeah.
talking about, like,
Hmm.
and then like it was the lockdown for me was like, right, let's get the arse in gear. And that's when I signed up to my first Ironman. That's when I like it was like you need to, you're not doing this. And I think, like, I don't know if you can relate to this, mate. Like, we're obviously in a similar path, like similar world, both coaches and stuff. That you kind of go down this path of growth, and you keep thinking that growth ends without saying it out loud. You keep saying it like,
Yes.
once I get to here, like
Yeah,
once I get to, and then like, and I started to be like, right, once the business is here, once I've got this, and once I've got this many clients, and once we're doing this, and once we've got folk doing this thing, and I can chill. And I was like, no, man, I need to be a savage all the time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't
It's
matter, like, if I've got like a place of abundance, like we're comfortable in life and business. I need to keep that relentless push up every day, because if I don't, I'm dying. You know what I mean?
exactly. That's what I say. If I stop doing this shit, I'm going to flatline. And you will go through those periods, which we all do. We can't try to convince or ourselves or anybody else in the world that we are savage 100%
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
time, and the switch never goes off. It does. We need elements and be able to go to either end of the spectrum as well, but knowing how to not obviously not fall completely off the cliff at the same time. But exactly what you said there. Like I remember as I went into bodybuilding after my rugby career, I give the men's physique a crack. And I'm like, oh, if I get on men's physique stage and I do well at that, and I'm that's all I need to do. It turned out to be a load of shit. 10 minutes on stage, and it didn't grow my business or do anything else. Then I probably sat. I did. All right, what can I do next? Well, I'm out here. Got comfortable. Right, let's do this world record thing. And then I'll keep playing that same drum until everyone I'm a world record all the 5 years later and not do anything else. And I think you've just got to keep chasing that for your own good. And I say it's something I say to my clients, especially you probably relate to this. I don't expect them to do the crazy stuff I do,
yeah,
or they don't need to put themselves in them situations. Their goal might be the first thing for simply from walking into the first 5K. But if I always say if it scares you and excites you a little bit at the same time, do it. There's no questions asked. Throw yourself into the mixer and get after it. But yeah, there's that constant search of doing more. Um, I sometimes think I might slow down and settle, but maybe this year I've got a baby on the way, so I
mate.
might have a chill period for a small while.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. You need to go through cycles of where you don't really do much and you chill out and you do like I think what happens is your standard of what the baseline is just keeps raising. So like even when you're kicking back, it's a different kicking back to like what it was 2 or 3 years ago. Like you, and like I went to see Hunter recently at a seminar and he was using examples. Hunter McIntyre, who's like the 3 times he's the current world record holder of high rocks, and if anyone doesn't know, and he was basically saying that like the top athletes he studied all have extended periods of time away from the sport to
Yeah.
go and focus on other things. And in that time, they also chill out a little bit more. They maybe if they do consume alcohol, they'll consume a bit more alcohol. They'll just come out because when you're in this like high pressure pushing all the time, whether that's like physically, whether that's like
Mhm.
pushing in business, like there has to be a bit at the end where you scale things back a little bit. Otherwise, you're just on this like constant state of like you're just antagonized all the time. Do you know what I mean? And it's like poking a bear.
Mind and body, and I think people forget to realize that your mind and your energy systems are going to drain more than just the physical attributes. Like I see some guys now training for IROX and they're going to classes and training super high intensities all the time, and they're getting better fast. And I'm like, there's going to be no longevity in that. You're going to burn out. You might progressively look like you're getting better and better now by training high intensity, sweating, challenging your friends all the time. It's going to stop. And I strip it back to like obviously being a professional rugby player. And I suppose because of having so long out of the game before I got into this, initially you probably did the same. I was like the IROC slag initially. I was doing as many IROCs as I could, jumping from one competition into the other. And like, this ain't how you do this. This isn't how you play the game. We had a rugby season, we played, and we had an off season. And in that time, I chilled, probably drunk more beer than I should have done, everything else in between. But then it were a time to just, I don't need to think about rugby. And we'll have an off season, we'll come back in a pre-season and we'll start building up that capacity again. And I think for going into performance, and you've probably seen this maybe in yourself and in your own clients as well, is that the guys who really want to push but haven't had that experience, they want to do more. It's like you get clients who it's like you're trying to drag more work out of them. You need to do more. some of them you're trying to pull them back here. It's all right. You don't need to go as hard, and it's all right at this stage that we deload and we bring things back to baseline, and we can build on that again. And that's even been a lesson for myself. Honestly, Reeve will be the first to tell you, I've never missed a session. If anything, I've probably done one or two too many when I first started getting into this.
Yeah, it's exciting though, man. It's but again, you need to go through that. And
Yeah,
I seen a post that Dan actually put up yesterday. And I think it was probably inspired from something he said when we were talking. And it was basically about like all the different stuff like you do, and he referred to it as your sweet spot. But he put the post up yesterday, and he was basically talking about trial and error. Like
hmm
you need to live
yeah, yeah,
lessons. Like you need to actually go and fall flat in your face. Because I've been chatting about how like the thing that I didn't realize I was massively under fueling. Now I'm very conscious of fueling because of all the endurance things I've done over the last few years. But I'd never taken into account the lifting, the intensity, and the endurance all at once. I was like, shit, this is like tenfold on top of what I've done because when I've pushed endurance it's been lower states, so the intensities came down. But now I'm
yeah,
like doing like frequently doing like 70 to 80k weeks of running. I'm doing like 80 to 100k in a Concept 2 bike. And then
yeah,
I'm literally lifting weights like really, really heavy. Then I'm doing like really intense workouts like 2 or 3 times a week on top of that. Like 2 or 3 days on top of that. It's like it's a lot of volume. So it's like the what I done was like I was like fucking digging the ground away from underneath me.
yep,
And then like I was just like, going, what the fuck is wrong with me, man? And it was just wasn't eating enough food. Like what
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought was but even though that's so obvious, I had to live that to get it. You know what I mean?
Again, experiences, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's living trial and error, exactly as you've said. I've been in the same boat. When you've been bodybuilding for years, you get in sort of the bodybuilding mindset of food. I don't know what calories I eat now. I don't track anything. I just eat enough knowing that I'm fueling and I'm recovering right. Someone asked me the other day, so what calories are on? Because you look really lean. I don't know. I just eat instinctively now. I just know that my main priority and focus now is performing well and recovering well. And the recovery's been the big one for me as well. To be honest with you, I've got the marathon now in about 3 weeks' time, and I'm going to be taped up and I'm just all hoping I all together for that. And it's just been like so much intensity. And like yourself, we're probably very we understand as bodies, we understand the cues. And for me, it's like, all right, you've got a niggle, to push through, you're being soft. And then there's times when it's like, no, Ryan, you need to have some time off the feet, jump on the bike here. And again, that's been a relearning curve for me again over the last sort of 6 months to 12 months, and just understanding the cues when it's all right to push. We know ourselves sometimes we're fatigued and we're pushing through. But for me, it's sometimes just stripping back, putting the feet up, the compression pants on and saying you need an extra rest day. That's the hardest thing, but
Yeah.
it's been the most beneficial thing for me as well.
You have to be very intuitive, and it's something I speak about a lot, but like you need to earn intuitiveness. Like you can't
Yeah, you
like
do.
and that's why I think like it's so good to have that bodybuilding background. You don't have to be
Yeah,
a bodybuilder, but like that because it's very numbers. It's very like do this, do that. It's very even though it's like intensity, it's low impact versus
yeah,
like this stuff. So like you can say to someone, yeah, you can eat this every day. If you hit these steps every day and you do this, and this is the numbers you need to hit. But as you said, like it gets to this point where like more hybrid training, like high intensity, where like there has to be like, are you hungry? It's like eat more. Like,
yeah,
but like people need to earn that because saying that to someone that is it's like and people just take this wrong where they're like, oh, so I should do that. It's like, no man, like you need to be eating a bit less right now. Like you're overweight.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like you need to regulate that. And that's it's hard. And I think now, like what would your advice be to someone? This is probably quite a good question, mate that's like loving performance hybrid style training. They're quite fit, but they're carrying a lot of fat. What would you say to them?
I think the first goal in anything is they've got to look at the body composition first, which is going to make them perform better. What I'm advising now for some of our clients, like who still need have some body fat to drop, is just be fueling smart around your sessions, and I think that's going to be the key factor, like in it. And it's an individual thing as well. Obviously, we want them fueling to get through them sessions, but I've s- I used to always laugh at the if you go back to using The Rock, Dwayne Johnson as an example of this, and you'd see him having them big, huge, uh,
Cheap
if I
meals.
pause it.
Yeah,
Of
you
course,
froze a
I
little bit, mate.
understand.
It's all right. I can still hear you.
All right. So obviously, I used to always use him as an example that he's got that big stack of pancakes, and people go, "Oh, I want a cheat meal like him." Like, mate, you're 30% body fat. You haven't earned the right to have a cheat meal like this. And I think people portray a lot with athletes and other people to see on social media opening that they can do that same thing. And exactly what you said, you have to earn the right to do that. If you're in a calorie deficit, it's normal that sometimes you feel hungry. If you're in a performance phase and you feel hungry, then you do need to eat more. Otherwise, you're not going to get through them sessions and you're not going to recover. But I think it's kind of that individual conversation what people are missing, because when something's put out on social media, um, people read what they want to hear. They're looking at what, right, this is kind of the thing I want to see. So I'm going to take my own twist on that, or that's the part I'm going to pull out. And I'm just going to kind of work it into my own mindset and the thing I'm doing, but not end up getting the results. And that comes down to the importance of having a coach in your corner, as we both
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, I think what happens is a lot of folk try to make this like literal hybrid of like, oh, I'll take a bit of that and I'll take a bit of this, but then they're not that they're taking this like whole approach to running and then this like whole approach to bodybuilding, then they'll try to take pieces of it and it doesn't work.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what the example I use for like for people to really understand fueling rather than looking at everything as dieting is that your body's like, you know, those old combustion trains like the ones
yep,
that the big like sort of engines on them that the guys chucking coal into them. Like
yep,
I have this conversation with so many folk because they keep trying to drop that they go through their first initial transformation, lose the weight, then they try and go back on the same food, but their performance is massively up, and then they keep
yep,
crushing themselves. And it's I use the example of like that engine is running way harder than what it was at the beginning. And it's
yep,
like this people can't get their head around that like that's too much food. It's like it's not too much food, it's adequate food. But if you actually eat that adequate food more consistently, you'll actually get leaner because you're
yeah.
doing so much now. But because they keep going to this like drop, push, drop it, they end up in this like sort of part where they're like two versions of themselves. There's this like diet version of themselves, then this performance version of themselves that just do not
Yeah, yeah.
work. They don't work together.
The door, the
They-
door tie in.
yeah.
Look, I love to look good. I love to feel good. I love to perform good. I think I've been maybe genetics play a part as well. I've always been pretty lean, regardless of what I've done. I eat like an horse now. I have to do with the amount of training I'm doing. Same as you. There's probably 80K on foot a week. Strength sessions in there. Still some high rocks conditioning sessions. And if I've had them, but probably initially still being a little bit in that bodybuilder mindset, and it wasn't playing. It wasn't playing,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's an hard thing to transition from your own experience to somebody else because especially around food, people. I always say it's more of a psychological thing, and trying to get people to do the right things with the nutrition is you can physically put the right things in front of them, but it's a psychological battle in both elements. And it just that again comes down to childhood, and it comes to what they've read on the internet or in books or taken advice from other people over the years. So it's
Yeah.
an hard thing, but yeah, advice to anyone is the same as you, especially if you are lean, you are going to have to fuel like crazy. But I think
Yeah.
it's a great way to look at fitness and your sort of longevity in what you're doing. If
Yeah.
you can train hard, you can eat more. That's a double bonus in my books.
100%, mate. It really,
I'm
really
in that.
is. And I don't think a lot of folk realize that, like, a lot, like, they're not really aware of the repercussions of undereating. Like, they're
Yeah,
not like they're aware, but they don't really recognize their energy. They don't really recognize like fatigue. They don't really recognize poor recovery. They don't really recognize a poor session. That might be the most standout thing to them. But like, we regularly get people that we say, like, I've had this pain in my knee quite a lot. And then like we start to kind of unpack and look at like what they've been doing in the past, and it's like, man, that's probably came from just like not nourishing yourself and doing a high amount of exercise for so long. You know what I mean? Like it's such an intricate thing. And as you said, mate, it's a relationship. Like I think people trying to oversimplify it is the thing that
yeah,
shoots them in the foot. Like
yeah.
they don't really recognize that it's so much bigger. And it's not me trying to complicate it or overwhelm
No,
anyone, but like
absolutely not.
they kind of just make it about calories and I just need to do this and I
Ah,
just need to eat less of this and drink that. And it's like, man, stop trying to oversimplify it. It's important to keep it simple, but like
yeah,
they're actually like I can't explain it. You're like they keep looking at everything so numerically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Rather than actually being like, you're eating fucking emotionally. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
your fucking mum fed you with love your entire
It's
life. Like,
it's
fucking understand this.
Yeah, yeah. Finish your dinner and you can have a dessert
Yeah.
afterwards, and it all stems back to them at early age. So trying to coach somebody out of that, it's not easy, but that's the everybody wants that physical quick thing. Like do that and you'll get the change rather than thinking, hang on, you're gonna have to do a little bit of internal work here and realize that the problem doesn't lie necessarily within the thing you've been trying to do. We've got to dig a little bit deeper here and find out psychologically and emotionally what the issue is around what you're doing. But it crosses over from fat loss into performance. Like I reckon there's a hell of a lot of good performance athletes out there who are still undernourishing or they're not doing it smart. If you want to be the best you possibly can be in performance sports, in high rocks and everything you do, you have to tick all the boxes. You have to take care of your sleep. You need to stop over caffeinating. You need to do all the things correctly to get yourself to where you are. Because I always say, look, if you have the willingness, the desire, and the work ethic to really push yourself to them limits, and stop being a fucking idiot with your nutrition and the things that are actually going to benefit you much more than you realize. You can't you can't train like an absolute maniac top level athlete and then and then eat like a kid. You just can't do that.
Yeah. I know a lot of folk are just trying to apply tactics in a different way that
Yeah.
no high performing athlete would do. But
No.
they're trying to follow the high performing athlete in one way, but then the low performing version of themselves in another part. And it's just again, you need to go through that, don't you? You need to like
Yeah.
bang your head against the
Experience.
wall like 10 times to then go, oh, I'm being a fucking idiot. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
actually being daft here. So yeah, mate. So I knew this would be something that would come on to as well because it's something that I experienced, mate. Like I experienced it in parts. Like I was like when I started doing the Ironman, didn't know my ass from my elbow in regards to like fueling. Learned a lot about
Yeah.
it the hard way. Bonked for like 5 cycles in a row. Couldn't figure out why. I was taking out like a bag of fucking M&Ms with me or something, man. Like to go out a 5 hour cycle and like I lost a lot of weight and then like I ended up binging as a result, not in a pure like emotional way, but like I'd come back and be like, I need so much food and I would eat all the wrong things and my physique was like my energy was up and down, my performance was crap. But I kind of done it in stages where like I started to learn about it and then I done another Ironman 70.3 in 2022. And that's when I started like kind of really, really feeling that I got the good balance of it. But I picked it, some days I would do like a day where I lifted weights, I fasted, right? Never ate, but then a day that I was going a longer cycle, I fueled for it. So I was like, I was doing it like 4 out of 7 days. Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
weird. It
yeah.
was like, and the outcome was good, but like again, I was just like, I wasn't committing because I was like, but if I have this day, then that means I can't do it. It was just all these like beliefs that I had, man. It just takes time to overcome it. The more you go into it as well, it's just something new, isn't it? Uh,
It is, yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
it's finding your own sweet spot as well. Like I've probably gone into, I think I went in the world champs probably a little bit too lean,
Yeah,
thinking if I was lean, and then probably I a couple of mistakes that you've made yourself. I think we spoke at one IROX as well with the fueling situation on the way
yeah,
around. You had a bit of an hiccup, and I
yeah,
missed my intra fuel in the world championships again. Experiences and things you there's always going to be lessons in what you do, but
yeah,
I think the main thing, especially with high rocks, it's very new, and we can
yeah,
all coach it with the same methods and the same principles are going to apply to a certain degree. But trying to find that individual sweet spot for yourself and your clients is not an easy thing to do. And even the methods and everything that we need to put in place, it's a new thing, and it's going to take some time to fully figure out what's going to work for you. I still feel like I'm following the plan and I'm getting progressively better, which is the main goal. But I think when it comes like to performance fueling and even body composition, I'm a better going in with like I've done different competitions, going in a little bit leaner, gone in a little bit more body fat, and it's like, all right, where's the sweet spot here?
yeah.
Um,
I'm the same, mate. I think every single I've done 5 now, and like every single one, like there's been like a massive boo boo in it. See I just forgot my gels at the World Champs,
yep,
mate. Like
the
just never,
same.
like literally walked downstairs. My mum had the bag. I'm not blaming my mum here. Like we just left it in the bag because we were talking to John,
Yeah,
our coach, and they were videoing it and stuff for the vlog, and I just forgot. And I went downstairs and like we were in the start line, and I was like, oh no, man. And then like we were on the row. And that's where I start to go, mate. Like, see, around the time of it's the burpees then into the row. That's where I start.
Yeah,
Like, I think like I'm really sensitive to what you call it, insulin. I think I'm
yeah,
insulin sensitive, and I think as well because Ailey, like you obviously get to know each other really well, get to know yourself really well, and I think caffeine, like Ailey was researching as well for a podcast recently. I think being too caffeinated actually affects my insulin sensitivity when I'm training at a high
yeah. Makes
intensity.
sense.
Yeah, like it's so I need to. So you're just toying about and see how you joked as well before about the mouth. What's it called? Dry mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mouth like Gandhi's flip flop.
Mate, I figured out how to stop it, man. So
Yeah,
basically, the world champs, mate. I basically like what I noticed was like 'cause what I've started doing is I started journaling after every like I do a full race debrief after every race now. So
yeah, yeah. Love
every
that.
event, I talk for the full day. I started looking back and I was like, in this one, I was like, I'm drinking too much water. Like, see if I'm competing at like 11, I'm like, why am I drinking way more than what I would do? Like normally, like I never like because I was like I train at this time every Sunday. You're back on, mate. I'll put you on the pin.
I've just
Um,
changed. I've changed my camera.
all right. So basically, there was a point, man, where I was like, why am I'm going into a Sunday workout, and that's the actual day that so see the time that I trained on a Sunday. It was our
Yeah.
gym opens 11 till 3. It's pure random on a Sunday. 11 till 3. It's a community gym, but it's a great gym. I love it. But we were competing at 11, 5 past 11. So I was like, this is exactly when we do our training every Sunday. So a big high rock simulated workout. Let's say I'm just going to do exactly what I do. And I done exactly what I do and I never get dry mouth, mate. Like I was
Really,
like,
yeah.
I think I panic and drink too much water.
Yeah.
And then I actually just end up going to the pee a lot as a result of that. And then I
Yeah.
actually go into the event overhydrated and dehydrated. It's strange.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
yeah. So well, all I had in the morning was I had my electrolytes. I had like probably about half a liter of water, and that was it.
Mhm.
And I was
Yeah,
fine, mate. Like I think like you just sometimes overdo it, and then you end up actually. Then I recently done a 10K race, which was at night time. It was at 7 p.m. And that
yeah.
day I was panicking for drinking too much water because then whatever sore stomach, and I drank like a liter of water all day, and then like I had the worst pain ever. Like 6 kilometers in, my heart rate just shot through the roof, man. So it's when you're at sort of that peak, you're really pushing hard. Like the I had this conversation with Sean that genetics, the 1%, the things that you used to think were so important but weren't actually important now become actually very,
Yeah.
very important because actually being dehydrated can actually crank your heart rate up 5 to 10 beats per minute. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And if you're working at absolute maximum capacity up at your sort of 80th, 90th percentile and your heart rate's of 5 beats per minute, you're going to feel it. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, Matt, that were exactly the case for me at the Worlds. Obviously, we're like you'll know, say, well, it were like competing in a greenhouse, wasn't it?
Top man.
I'm used to training the heat, living in Portugal, but that was a different game. I think in total, if I'm not mistaken, there were 50 athletes just in the men's that didn't finish the race, and they're
Yeah.
supposed to be the best in the world, right? So it shows how bad it was. And I started warming up a little bit too early. I was sweating profusely. But then I've started doing exactly what you started. I've made sure I'm well hydrated and I pull my water about 30 minutes before the race, just so I'm not going in with a full bladder and needing to piss halfway around. I did the same tactics and then I paid for it back in, like I was cramping on the farmers' carries and things like this. And these are, again, probably under fueled, your fueling and your preparation, your hydration works well in one scenario. Put that up to probably what 45, 50 degrees. It was probably in that place. You started warming up a little too early. You're losing more salts, you're losing more water, and you've done your same preparation. You needed to do more. And
Yeah.
that's just been smart. I know if I ever were competing there again, I'd be fueling a little bit different and obviously forgetting his gels like with his schoolboy
Yeah.
era, but these things happen.
It's funny. There's a guy from another couple from Glasgow. Well, no, they're from Edinburgh. And they were next to us. We were literally head on head with them the full way. It was really good, man. And I was just like that to him on the row. I was like, I done like 800 meters and he only done like the last two, and I just came off. I was like to the guy, mate, do you have a gel? I was like, I was just like saying, and everyone was like, no. I was like, oh no. And then like literally like 2 runs later, mate, I was like, like going around like dying. It's
Yeah.
mental. It's
It
absolutely
affects you
nuts.
mentally as well because you
Yeah.
know that's your little thing. All right, it might make And like you say, it comes to endurance sports when we're trying to push them higher percentages and get the best out of ourselves. Then 1% things make a huge difference. And when I went to my back pocket and my gel wasn't there, it's an instant sinking feeling. Then you're 5 minutes in your head running around just like you fucking idiot, and it's taking you away from your race. You're losing that concentration element. Of course, it is going to have an impact on you, but again, we're in the masterclass I run last night. I was just going over and over again, like what to expect, but just like don't make the mistakes. I think it's a great thing as a coach, as what we do as coaches. We have to put ourselves in these situations if we expect people to get the best out of themselves. Let us make the mistakes for you. I suppose, and then we won't make them ourselves, and hopefully you won't make them as well, because it's so easily done.
Yeah, it really is, man. But it's exciting. What's your plans coming into this season? What's your goals? What's your targets? What are you thinking?
So the next thing is full send on the marathon now. 3 weeks out. I cannot wait to see the back of it. To be honest with you, marathon prep has been horrendous. I've got shin splints now. Everything's hurting, but it's
Yeah.
just obviously holding on for dear life, and I'm looking forward to the end of that. I've then got doubles in Birmingham to do with my missus, the first one, the mixed doubles, which we planned last year, booked on, and then she got pregnant. So she's going to actually be 7 months pregnant when we're doing it. So that's basically going to be a case of her just running around shouting at me. It's like a day in the life of Ryan normal anyway. So that's going to be interesting. But I'm looking like one thing I'm actually going to do in that. Like I did a doubles. I don't know if you know Tom Kemp from Farm Fitness. He's a cool guy. He's got a place called Farm Fitness back in the UK. It's one of the best gyms in the world. He invited me to go back to do one of his partners jumped out. Ryan, do you fancy coming back to do a
I
doubles?
seen
He'd
that,
never done
yeah.
an IROX yet. So I flew back on 24 hours notice, jumped into this doubles with him. And he's a big boy, strong as an ox. And we got in at the burpees and I said, look, mate, I'm going to take him. And I did the burpees on my own. And I didn't realize till after, even in the same pairs doubles, I'd almost broke the world record for what that is. So I said to Laura, if we're going to have some fun with this, I'm going
Yeah.
to try on the stations, go full send and put myself in a hole. And I'm going to try break the world record for the burpees in the on the IROX
Aerobics.
because
Yeah, we done a so it was funny like last year, like, no, last year earlier on this year when I done Glasgow. Me and Ailey done the mixed doubles, and that's the one where I had an absolute blunder of a race, man. I wasn't looking back, man. I was it was a combination of a lot of different things. I was still rinsed from Turin. That's where we qualified for the Worlds, and then I done that not well, and I just had to go right. This is our opportunity to like do it, and I
yeah.
done it not well, and I paid for it for weeks, and then I think the under fueling, it was like loads of different things, and I went and I felt good going in, and then mate, everything just was like not good. But anyway, we
Yeah.
ended up not finishing that one, man. I got to the sled pull
Yeah.
and I choked, like I was actually choking. I choked in a sweet, and I was pure bonking, and it was just it was awful. Like it was just the what it was like because all my clients were there, were vlogging it. I was
Oh,
just like, oh, this is awful, man. Like it just feels terrible. But the next day, I jumped in and stepped in with my client Johnny. And Johnny's like literally new to his running journey and stuff. He's done high roxys, so we average, I think, 5.5 kilometers for every pace. And my usual pace would be like sub 4 if we're doing it. So then like I went onto the stations, I went, let's fucking rip on these. We ended up doing like a 112. Like and we done
class.
like 5.5 minute kilometers. And I was like, because we just ripped through the stations. Like
Yeah.
I came out the stations rate, mate, my heart rate was like 188. Like I was just like fucking like I went, let's go as hard as we can on these, man. Like I think like our sled time was like up there with one of the top ones in the day, and
That's
like
brilliant.
is like we just like flew it. But yeah, like that would be good, mate, to do that. But
Yeah.
that'd be awesome, man. What are you feeling about like qualifying for World Champs, man?
It's going to be harder this year anyway, isn't it? That's for sure. It's 500,000 competitors, top 1%. It's going to be a tough gig. So I've got the doubles there. It's going to be a fun run. I've got Paris not long after with my brother as a double. My brother's a great competitor. We did a doubles, like pro doubles, and he's tiny, my brother. And
Yeah, I met him in Glasgow. Yeah,
yeah, I remember him. So he's bigger now. We've bulked him up. But we did a pro race, did pretty well. Around the hour mark for someone who were like 65, 66 kilos at the time. It were a pretty good innings as runs were fast. So we're doing a doubles in open. I'm looking forward to that one. Potential could be a qualifier with him, which would be great to do that with my brother.
yeah.
But then I've got my heart set on going sub 60 at Valencia, which is back end of November.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm looking to get a qualifying spot for because maybe during January I know I'm gonna be tied up a little bit there. So that's the one I'm trying to go full send, and that's the goal to hit that sub 60 and hopefully get a spot for the Worlds.
Yeah, our plan is I'm doing Madrid next month, and that's men's pro I'm going to do. So I did have a target, mate, but I'm just going to go and just I've done a lot of work and I'm really fit right now, and I'm not
Yep.
going to even set an expectation because I don't know, mate. So I said sub 65, but we'll see. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we'll see, man. But
Yeah.
and it's not even me being unambitious. I want to go and just do it, and just like I'm super fit right now. I've been doing a lot of work. Well, like I don't. That's not the opportunity. I don't know. I don't know what the times like are for men's if a men's pro if you qualify. Like, because that would still be a high time, man. Do you know what I mean?
It'll be good. I think if you're coming in under the 105s now, you're 65, you've got a good chance of getting there that quality. But it's like literally the top one now. I think you've got to be a first place finish. Even a podium finish ain't going to do it. Like I qualified for the Worlds in Barcelona with I got a fourth place finish on that one. I got a time of 103, 104, I think it was. And I want a podium finish, but obviously someone had qualified previous, so it goes on to the next person. That's how
Uh,
I got my qualifying spot. I've got a faster time and it want a qualifying spot. So it depends on the place, the venue as well.
yeah, it's and as well, mate. The day, like it's horses, not courses, man. You could go and
Yeah,
someone could have just a blunder of a day that's a better athlete than you.
absolutely.
Like, do you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
It
it's
comes
like
together.
it just comes together, man. So we're doing Hong Kong. So we're doing mixed doubles. So that's the one I love, the mixed doubles category. I like me and Ailey's
Yeah.
like so our goal for that is to I'd like to get like 58 minutes for that. That's
That'd be
the
nice. That'd be
yeah,
brilliant to
so
do that.
that would be good to do, man. So I'm pretty mate, I looked up the Singapore times last year and 109 won it.
No. But the thing is, like, because of that, you're going to get people traveling there now just to get the podium finishes. I think
Yeah,
Mexico were even, I think at Mexico, you'd have got a qualification at like 1 or 12 or something.
it's mad, man.
Mexico's great. I wouldn't even I've been to Mexico 5 times. I wouldn't mind flying there to do a high rocks anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good, man. So I think that's the thing. It's like, because I had a client and they were basically talking about the other day, like, I really want to get this done. And I was like, I didn't qualify till last February. I didn't do my first high rocks until last October. Like, the
Yeah,
season's only beginning, man. Like, and as you said, like, the more people go into it, you could go and do an event where, like, you qualify someone, but there's two folk in front of you that have already qualified. Do you know what I mean? That
yeah.
have, so you don't know, man. Like,
No, you
but
don't.
the flags, man, are definitely the thing that I want to capture a few flags. We've got two. I've got two up in my office here,
Yeah,
so I want
yeah,
to get some more flags, man, because they are like it's I don't know, mate. It's just it's good to like chase this when it's like, and I feel like right now, man, I'm already ahead of the curve. Like I feel like, do you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it's like I've been doing work and I'm fitter than what I was. So
Yeah.
theoretically, how can you not? Do you know what I mean? Like, but it's going to be very competitive, man. It's exciting.
It's going to be tough. And I think you've got to have a good stint. We've just got the masterclass again I did last night for our clients. We've got 5 or 6 guys doing the first IROX within the next few months. And they're just getting super pumped and excited. I said, look, your first one, you're just setting a benchmark. This takes a long time, a lot of mistakes, a lot of lessons, regardless of what you're putting in the work. You're going to take some time to find your sweet spot and actually get good at this actual thing. I think I've done 12 races or something now. And to be honest with you, I'm still like, I need another good couple of races in me to see where I am, find my sweet spot. Like I'm too light now, just purely through marathon training to hit the pros, in my opinion. So my idea, I've got that open race in Valencia. Let's see if I get a qualification. Then next year, I'm just gonna there's some weight going back on, and then I'm gonna just stick with the pros
Yeah. Have
consistently.
you
Then moving
have
forward.
you seen there's a new category, elite doubles?
Yeah, I like the look of that. That's cool.
That's cool, man, isn't it? Like elite 15
Yeah, yeah,
doubles. Mate,
yeah,
it's
yeah. I
exciting
think
to
that's
see where
great.
it goes and stuff, man. Like, I've got a session in a couple of weeks with I'm doing like a day with a few guys that basically have this brand. But one of the guys is he raced in the Scotland team
Yeah,
at the World Champs this year, John. So I've got a session in with him and his mate Niall and him and Niall that run Always Ready. So I'm looking forward to that, man. That'll be good. I think he's ranked like 25th in the world.
probably yeah.
Mad,
Yeah,
man. Crazy.
there's nothing. There's nothing better than you. The way to get better at this is putting yourself around better people. Like we've got the training camp next week, and all this week I've been running with Joe Paris. Man, the guy's literally a fucking human gazelle, but it's paid dividends just running with him.
Yeah.
Like I see the speed, and when you're training at times, like I said earlier, I don't think you need to be doing it all the time, and I think your ego and the intensity done too much is too much. So it's like finding that optimal, but definitely putting yourself in the arena with better athletes is going to make you better.
Yeah.
100%.
I always encourage all of our clients to get sessions in with other people, man, to go and try out with
Definitely.
other people because it's going to be the thing that propels them forward. Like you need to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that competitiveness, you know what I mean? You need to have that there because it drives you forward. But yeah, mate, I've got one more question, man. How are you feeling about becoming a dad, mate?
Oh God, the biggest challenge today, and there's been a few. I'm excited, but I think until she's here, little baby girl we're having. I don't think till then it's going to fully settle in. I don't think it's something you can prepare for, but I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a good thing for me. I am openly a selfish arsehole, very selfless, but very selfish. And I think it's going to obviously having that extra special person in your life, it's going to change me for the better. Not that I'm a bad guy now, but there's things that I could
I
be
know what you
doing
mean.
better.
Yeah.
I think you have to have that element of selfishness with what we do. You've got to be able to say no and do the things you want to do to propel yourself forward. But it's exciting times, yeah. It were more like I say, even we booked this doubles and we said, oh, we'll start trying for a baby and maybe next year, and then we got a little surprise earlier than expected, but it's a good surprise.
Oh, that's mega, mate. I'm buzzing for you both, mate. It's exciting, and
Yes.
I think like I've probably only recently in the last like year or so, like we've obviously talking about we're going to wait a couple of years, but it would definitely be something in the next couple of years, man. Like I've again, mate, selfishly, like it's not even been on my mind, like it's just not. But it's only been recently that I've been going like I'd like a wee boy and a wee girl. Do you know what I mean? Like it's fun. You must hormonally have this intent. Like say a woman have this like internal clock, and then they start to get this
True.
like they can feel it mothering and stuff like that. Like I think as a guy, you must start to you either want to pass on your legacy or you don't. Do you know what I mean? And you start to think about that and stuff. And I think it's like you know those parent. You'll be one of these parents, mate, that will make other people want to be a parent. You know those parents you see, mate, and you go fuck
Yeah, yeah,
that, man. Like you are making this look terrible. Like, and people talk, man. Like it's funny, but I was watching Nick Bear last night on
yeah,
YouTube, and the guy's just like, I was like, ah, he's too good. He's a fucking Christian. He's an act he praise. Like, he's got kids, dogs, a multi-million dollar business, an amazing brand. The guy's a unit. Like the
yeah,
guy's like doing high. He's gonna do like a sub 60 first high rocks, man. Like he's running
yeah.
like 330s and he's like 210 pounds. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah,
It
it's mad. I
really
was
is.
like, how does he do what he does? And then you hear him and he's like, yeah, I got like 4 hours sleep last night. It's like, how are you functioning, mate? Like, how are you
Man.
alive? Um,
He's one of them creatures we spoke about earlier, just a freak of nature, but massively inspiring. I've never been one of those guys who looked at people, oh, why is that arsehole doing it? I'm genuinely inspired by people like that. And I think, look, you can only do that. You can't always play yourself off against other people or worry about that. I'm a big advocate of staying in your own lane and doing your own thing. But I think there's elements and times in your life when you've probably who need to toughen up when you've been a bit soft, as I said earlier, and then just go, look at them doing it. They're in a much worse situation than I am, or not necessarily worse, but they've got a lot more shit going on. If they're doing it, that's enough of a big of a kick up the ass for me to actually get on with my life and actually do something now.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Very, very motivating, man. But, mate, it's been epic to chat today, mate. I know a lot of people will take a lot of value away from this conversation. Before we close things off, mate, where can everyone find you? I'll add them into the show notes and stuff as well, like your Instagram and that, man. But where can everyone find you, mate? And if you want to add in about your camps and stuff as well, mate, feel free.
Yeah, so main place to find me is on Instagram, Ryan Smith _fitness. That's pretty much where I am the majority of the time. I have other social networks as well, but that's pretty much where I spend most of my time. Training camps, just like yourself, we've spoke about this already. I think it's a fantastic thing. We've got the last one of the year happening on Monday, and we're going to be doing a ton of those in next year. And I think me and you are going to cross over and come to each other's camps and that. I think it's just a great thing to do. The three things I love more than anything is connection, traveling and fitness. And I think when you can bring those together, and especially do it in an epic place and sunshine, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've got ours next week as well, mate. So
Oh
it's going
mate,
to be
it's
good,
gonna be
man.
good.
I'm excited for it. It's mad to be doing stuff like this, isn't it?
It's so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing. So I've lived like here in Portugal 8 years, and there's times I was saying this to Joe since he's moved out here. I go every year. There's time when I just like wander out into the sea, and I'm just floating there. It's like 8, 9 o'clock at night, 30 degrees, and I'm just looking back at the shore and like, this is my life now. It's a real pinch me moment because I think when you are an entrepreneur and you're always on the go, searching for more, it's sometimes hard to take yourself back. I never like fully proud or just like, oh, you've done all right there. But there's moments I think you need to just pull yourself back and go, yeah, you've done all right, you kid. You're not doing
Yeah.
too bad. And I have that moment at least once a year. And um yeah, it's pretty cool.
No, as mate, I can relate, man. I've had it a few times this year and stuff. Like, what the fuck? When did this happen? But no, mate, thanks very much for coming on. And guys, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, apologies that the video went like halfway through. Please subscribe. And if you're obviously listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is, please obviously give us a rating as well. But other than that, thank you very much. See you later. Goodbye.